Hello everyone. I'm about to do some winter camping with the kids this weekend, so I thought since I had the Pulk out, I would do a little video on my do-it-yourself Pulk that I built last year. It's not so much a step-by-step, just kind of a quick overview of what I did with my Pulk here. It's all loaded, like I said, it's all loaded up. I got my duffel bag on for winter camping, but I thought I would just keep it on there so I could show you the strap system, the strapping that I used for this one, because as I was looking at YouTube videos, I didn't really love any of the ways I saw people strapping their gear to their sleds. Some people were taking ropes and just threading it through the sled. Some people were using bungees to connect it. Some people were using nets and stuff. So the reason I didn't like that is I camp with 5 kids, and I figured if I brought even 10 bungee cords into the woods, I would come back with maybe 1. So I wanted something that was kind of kid-proof, as well as just easy to use, especially in Minnesota where our winters get a little bit cold. I didn't want to have to take off my gloves to try to thread some paracord through these little eyelets. So I came up with this system here, which was actually kind of expensive. I ended up spending about $50 for these 3 straps. They're about $10 a piece, but then I paid a $20 setup fee because I kind of designed it myself through strapworks.com. And I basically picked out the buckle and the S-hooks, the color, the length, everything about these. And, so far they've worked really well. I actually, really like the way they turned out. All in all, I mean, if you knew how to sew and you knew a little bit more about straps than I do, you could probably build this for about $10. They're not, none of these pieces are expensive. I just don't know anything about sewing, so I just had somebody else do it for me. The first thing I got that I did was, instead of just a single pole, I ended up doing a double pole buckle, and that way I can I always have a little bit extra to grab on and pull. So like I said, if it gets cold, I'll have my mittens, and I'll just kind of pull those tight without having to take out my gloves. And it also gives me the ability to slide these buckles around depending on where I have gear on there. So like right now with my shovel up there, I don't want the straps right on top, so I can easily move those down just by pulling on them. So I thought that was really I think it works nice to have the double pole than just a single pole. The other thing I did is I put it's actually rather large. I kind of wish that these were smaller, but it's a safety S-hook. And this S-hook is just, it has a little catch on there, just kind of like a little carabiner catch. But it allows me to, when it's in the sled, when they're off, they're not gonna go anywhere. If the kids grabbed the sled and took off with it, they shouldn't lose any pieces. But it still gives me the option to take them off and relocate them to a different part of the sled if I want to adjust the way the straps are, move them, or go the lengthways instead of across. So it does so it works pretty good for that. And like right now I have 3 of them. I'd probably like to get a couple more, but I take this thing out a couple times a year, so 3 seems to be fine. And I'm usually just putting I got usually 1 bag on here, maybe some tent poles and a shovel or something, but nothing. I don't have a lot of loose items in my sled. Everything gets packed in the duffel. So so far it's worked out great. We'll see if these buckles cause me any problems down the road with them being a little bit larger. But since I'm pulling it, the extra weight isn't really that big of a deal. So I'll unload this sled here. The sled itself is actually just a garage sale find. It's nothing special, it's just a kid's sled. At some point maybe I'll upgrade to a little bit longer and deeper version, but again, for the few times I use it a year, it's not really necessary. For the strap points, I got 6 on each side. I just put little brass grommets to kind of protect the plastic. And I ended up using the holes that the sled handles were on. So, excuse me, if I had to do it differently, I might actually space them out a little bit better. But, again, I haven't had any issues with the way they are. And, that's basically it. Pretty simple. Just a couple couple breast grommets, and that's it. On the back side, I did cut some holes for some, like little rails or guides that I got here. These are just I had someone make these for me. They're probably a little bit beefier than what I need. They're stainless steel, and they would just get bolted on here. I took them off because when I was using them, like when there's not a lot of snow or there's ice, they actually cause more friction because of the weight of the sled. So because we don't have a lot of snow right now, I just actually take them off and don't use them. And it just works better with just the sled bottom than with these on. So not something I could really do on the fly, but if I know there's a lot of snow, I'll just go ahead and bolt them back in there. But I'll take them off for now. And then the pole attachments in front of the sled, I just used, a lot of YouTubers I saw did the same thing. They just used wheel casters. And they just, must have been a couple-inch wheel on there, 1 or 2 inch wheel, and I just ended up cutting that off, and you're left with a nice little bracket, so you don't have to make it yourself. I know some people were cutting metal to make them, but these are a couple bucks a piece, and they just, everything's already drilled out, so you just screw it onto the sled, and it was pretty easy to do. And I actually use little rubber washers to kind of protect not protect, but just to kind of quiet up the rods when they're in there, so they don't bounce around too much. And I just basically that's it for the sled. It's pretty easy to do. The poles that I ended up using are they're just chimney sweep rods that I found at Menards, and these are 4 foot in length, and I would have preferred to have the 5-footers, but I couldn't find them in the stores. They were online. I can find them, but in the stores they only had 4-footers. I was too anxious to build it, so I just went with these. And again, I haven't had any issues with them. But if I wanted longer ones, I'd probably just go online and order them. And they're pretty flexible. I mean, they're a little bit more flexible than I probably would like, but it is what it is. And on the sled side, what I did was I just took I know what you call these things, little tie rod or something like that, and I just found one of these at work, and I just had a welder just weld it right onto the end of the threaded part of the actual chimney sweep rod. And I mean, it's great. It added a little bit of length, to it, and I didn't have to cut it down. Some people I saw online would cut it off here and then epoxy it into the tie rod, but I thought, well, if I weld it, then I'd kind of save myself some cutting and some epoxying. So it actually worked out really well, and like I said, it gives it a little bit extra length, not much. On the other end, the end that goes to my hip belt, again, I didn't have to cut any of the chimney sweep rod. It was already threaded here, and I just found this little nylon nut, and ended up, or screw, I guess, not a nut, and cut a hole, just drilled a hole right down in the middle of it, and attached this, just put a little paracord in there with a little rubber tube to protect it, and then just put the rope through, tied a knot, and screwed it right to it. And like I said, it's cheap and easy, and kind of allows me to change if I want. My first loop is a lot bigger, so I've already changed this once, and actually should probably make it a little bit smaller even than that. Another YouTuber I saw actually put like a little metal ring on there, or what they call it, eyelet or whatever, and I think that might actually be a better idea than even the rope. So I could easily do that too, just by threading that on there. And so these just attach to the sled. Just with this, you just take off a little hook there, and you just thread it through. Now these rubber washers are kind of a pain to, like you have to. If I did this a lot, I probably would get rid of the rubber washers because they're just kind of hard to put on and off. And if you were doing it like at your campsite or whatever, it would, you'd probably end up losing these. But I don't actually take them off that often. I only take them off to store it, and sometimes to transport it, but not very often. So I don't mind the rubber washers. I think they actually do, they actually help more than they are a hassle. But as you can see, once they're on there, they provide a little bit, cushion, and it doesn't move around as much, and allows you to take it off. So, like I said, that's nothing new. I see a lot of people do that, and I think it works really well. And that is the sled and the pole. So the last thing is the hip belt, which I actually knocked down the light. The hip belt I was actually worried about because not a lot of YouTubers say where they got their hip belt or where they bought it from or what they're using. Some people use I think like tool belts and that, but I ended up going to REI and finding this thing, and it's just a REI hip belt for one of their backpacks, and I think it was $13 or $15. So I mean, it was a lot cheaper than I thought I'd have to spend, and it's a hiking hip belt, so it's got a lot of padding. It's got a little mesh pocket here to put snacks or GPS or whatever you want in there, and some some lashing rings on this side. So it's got some it's been really comfortable, and this is a large. I'm not normally a large, but since I'm using it for winter, I put it over a lot of my clothing, so I got a little bit bigger one. And then when I got it, it had these straps on both sides that were about a couple feet long, and I ended up just folding them about 4 times, and I brought it to a shoe store, and they just ended up running just basically sewed it together for me so I could form a little loop, and then I just put some little S hooks on there, and and then I attach it to the poles. There is a little bit of play. I'm kind of new to the Pulk thing, so there's actually a little bit of movement in there from the strap and the S hook and the rope that I would maybe at some point like to kind of tighten up so it's not quite as bad. But again, for as little as I use it, I haven't had a problem with it. I'm mostly just pulling with it. But if I was going up and down a lot of hills, I think that would get a little bit annoying, and I'd probably want to tighten it up. But other than that, it's worked out great. Like I said, I'll give it another. I've only taken on a few testing runs, so we'll try it out again this weekend and with the kids and see how it goes. And I'll let you know. Maybe I'll do another video on how I pack with taking 5 kids winter camping. But right now, this is my Pulk. Thanks for watching.